name is CanadianWaffle, and today I'm going to be going over the changes to Uncompromising Mode in the most recent update, Fear the Dark. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly cover the YouTube stuff, so if you like what you see, learn something new in today's video, consider liking the video and subscribing to see more Don't Starve content in your notifications. And a quick disclaimer, I am not going to be including every little balance change in the update. I'll only be putting in what I think is essential for you guys to know. If you want that sort of thing, I'll have a link in the description to the Uncompromising Mode Discord where you can find the full patch notes. Now let's quickly talk about the mod itself. Uncompromising Mode is an upcoming mod for Don't Starve Together, made to make the game harder, though not cruel. It's still in beta, but has received many substantial updates since its conceptualization. Recent updates, they've taken the mod in a more creative direction with brand new content added to the game that improves upon its difficulty instead of just nerfing and buffing base game mobs and items. There's already a lot to unpack, so let's not waste time here and get to the additions, shall we? Let's cover the two most significant additions from the update, starting with random night events. Random night events have a 40% chance to occur on any given night, with an additional 10% per player on the server. And of course, you can customize the chance in the mod's options. There are quite a few, and I'll let you guys figure out precisely what yourselves, because part of their fun is the unknown. But if you want a future guide on RNEs, please let me know in the comments. The second of two significant additions, the Veteran's Shrine, is a set piece that can be activated to decrease the player's damage and drain their hunger faster. Currently, there are no rewards for activating the shrine, but they will be coming in a future update. Small lakes will now spawn in the swamp where rice plants grow. You can harvest them for rice, which we'll talk about more when we reach the food section. Wide grass will spawn on the nests of trapdoor spiders. These drop 3 grass when picked and disappear once you destroy the nest. And speaking of trapdoor spiders, they've gotten a texture revamp and now look like this. As for other spiders, Spider Warriors and Depth Dwellers will now try to counterattack after being hit. Basilisks have had a health buff going from 50 to 75 and now have bigger, stronger cousins, the adult basilisks, which always drop a bat wing. Scorpions will now pop out of the desert sands to nip your ankles, and upon killing them you'll get a carapace, which is another food item we'll come back to later. Scorpions' attack, along with bees and mosquitoes, will shorten the sneeze timer in summer, so be careful there. And in spring, mosquitoes get a not-so-fresh look that is currently only visual, although I'd love to see that change over time. Pollen Mites will pop up in dens during summer. They're a big old nuisance, and you want to make sure you break down the nests ASAP. They have big-time effects on your hay fever, so watch out in the hot season. Tree guards will no longer be stunned from attacks and will now turn nearby tree stumps into pinelings, a new mob which is essentially a wooden skitter squid, but regardless, I love it a lot. Frogs can now eat food off of the ground, so get those ice boxes going before spring. On the frog topic, Toadstool will now only drops shroom skins upon death, and toad rains now have an increased minimum and maximum time between their occurrences. The Ancient Guardian will now knock back players upon hitting them to prevent chains of falling rocks and other nonsense. And the Antlion will now make ripples under the player's boat when trying to make sinkholes. The Creeping Fear will no longer spawn if bosses like Deerclops are nearby. Larvae Fishers will no longer spawn during summer. I don't know what they were, but I'm glad they're gone by the sounds of them. Abominamals now have a special snowball belching attack to harass players even more. Rats will now prioritize equipable gear when looking for something to nab. Pangolins will now only get aggressive when you step on the ice that they nest in, so worry less about the flailless devils now. Caged up birds will now take half the damage from monster morsels as they would standard monster meat and heal up to 1 monster meat's worth per day. Pigmen and bunnymen will no longer murder their kind unless befriended, so goodbye simple bunnyman farm. It served us well. Catcoons will now do much more damage to rats than other mobs, a nice little touch. Lobsters are no longer able to be fished up with no bait. And now for some character tweaks. Wobie can now be killed and will respawn after half a day, similar to Chester. However, she's targeted only by a few hyper-aggressive mobs. She can also now eat monster morsels, or presumably half the effect of a monster meat. Walter can craft firework rounds with Niter, dealing 17 damage and creating 8 explosions that deal 5 damage each, making them perfect for slow or unmoving targets. He also has a lower minimum and maximum time between sneezes. Wormwood now takes an additional -5 sanity when hurting his plant friends, meaning that you can no longer get infinite sanity from chopping and replanting trees. His bramble husk has gotten revamped, and it will now shoot spikes periodically at dangerous mobs when nearby, lowering the armor's durability. To compensate for these changes, it has twice the durability and the spikes do less damage. He also has a new craftable food, the honey log roll, crafted with honey and living logs. This dish decreases the effects of hay fever on all characters, however, Wormwood and Woody have it reduced even further than the rest. Worley now gets bonus stats from eating different foods, but his food memory has gone from 2 to 3 days, and the effects of repeat dishes have been increased. Willow can light things on fire instantly during winter, ignoring the new smoldering system. Also, her explosions no longer harm players or destroy structures. And now it's time for those tasty Crock-Pot foods and tweaks. Seafood paella requires 1 rice and 1 lobster to craft. Rice loaf requires 2 rice and 2 fillers. Zaspberry Parfait is a Worley exclusive that requires 1 zaspberry and 1 dairy. When eaten, the player will shock and stun enemies that hit them for the food's duration. California King, which requires 1 lobster, 1 ice, 1 pepper, and 1 barnacle. And hardshell tacos, which require the scorpion carapaces from earlier. Next up, we have a bunch of buffs to farm-based crock-pot dishes, starting with creamy potato puree, which had its hunger buffed to 100. Salsa fresca, which had its hunger reduced to 25 and sanity increased to 50. Stuffed pepper poppers are now worth 50 hunger. Pumpkin cookies got a full wipe, now giving 40 hunger, 33 sanity, and 15 health. Stuffed eggplant now restores 45 hunger and 15 health. Another complete redo, asparagus soup, now restores 25 hunger, 30 health, and 20 sanity. And once more, fish tacos now restore 62.5 hunger, 15 health, and 5 sanity. And to finish it off, vegetable stingers now restore 30 hunger and 10 health. Lovely. You can no longer cook foods with more than 1 ice or twig unless its recipe specifically requires you to do so. So goodbye easy dragon pie and goodbye winter meatballs. Butterfly wings and scorpion carapaces are considered insectoid food items and can only have 1 in a dish before achieving wet goop. Now moving on to our weaponry and armor. The Bug Zapper is a brand new weapon that deals electric damage and has increased damage against various insects. This one's particularly good for those Pollen Mites from earlier, by the way. The Bug Zapper runs out of charge eventually, but it can be recharged with anything electric, including, but not limited to, doodads, frazzled wires, canary feathers, old goat horns, and even potatoes, which I adore. The Glass Cutter got buffed to deal 80 damage against shadow creatures, so it's definitely the go-to. The Ice Boomerang can now heal just over 20% durability when repaired with ice, and its freeze effects got doubled. The Morning Star will now no longer break when out of fuel and can be refueled with the new electric fuels mentioned earlier. It will lose its electricity when out of power, meaning the extra wetness damage is a thing of the past. The Morning Star will also now drain power twice as fast and protect you from lightning strikes. The Hambat's perish time has been reduced from 10 days to 8 days, and its minimum damage has been reduced to 14.85 or 25%. It can now be eaten by some mobs, including pigs, hounds, and spiders, a change which I honestly think should be in base game. Thulecite armor now has knockback resistance and a 40% sanity aura reduction, although I don't know if this applies to positive auras. The Cookie Cutter cap now reflects 75% of damage taken back to the attacker, and when hit, 5 damage spikes come out for AoE attacks. When wearing the Bone Helmet, Creeping Fears can no longer spawn, and you are immune to shadow projectiles. The Insulated Pack will no longer burn, so enjoy, I suppose. Ice Fling-O-Matics will now hold 20% more fuel, but a small amount is used up when it throws snowballs. Luxury fans and Gobbler fans will now reduce your hay fever by a significant amount, so worry not about sneezes if the Moose Goose is gone. The air conditioner is now always unlocked in the alchemy engine and costs only 2 shroom skin instead of 3. To go along with this, the spore pack is only 1 shroom skin now instead of 2. Sleeping will now stop hay fever as yet another way to combat the sniffles. Acid Rain now increases the spoilage timer of wet items by a whole 30%. And finally, Cave Overheating has been reintroduced, but with a 40% slower than usual overheat time and a max of first tier burn damage, so the caves are still viable for summer. Well, that's everything interesting in the Fear the Dark update. If you want to check out this mod in its entirety, there will be links to its Discord and the mod itself in the description. And while you're down there, consider checking out my Discord and Twitch channel for live streams and hanging out. But that's all for me, so have a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye!